irreconcilable state systems, but at the same time in possession of nuclear weapons. The deterrent effect of these weapons managed to keep the peace, though the world came close to catastrophe on at least 3 occasions. While there were several efforts made to reduce the nuclear stockpiles, there was no real effort to denuclearize per se, and the justification for maintaining these weapons was premised on the need to deter the Soviet Union through mutual obliteration, if necessary. At the end of the Cold War, one might have expected, therefore, that nations would step back from the global nightmare of nuclear weapons, given that the world had also moved away from that paradigm I spoke about at the turn of the century, that the world was in a win-lose situation, that ideological confrontation and total war were a thing of the past. The world came close at Reykjavik when Gorbachev proposed a nuclear-free world, but this was obviously politically premature, and in any case President Reagan was keen to develop a missile defense system which might have made it impossible to arrive at an agreement. What is good and positive about recent developments is that the Obama administration is clearly committed to progress on the elimination of nuclear weapons and on strengthening the systems we have in place to secure existing weapons. But in order to be convinced that elimination or near elimination is actually possible, we have to be able to answer certain questions. But one of the main concerns is that acquisition of nuclear weapon by a terrorist group, for example, cannot be dealt with without retaining certain nuclear weapons oneself. However, acquisition of such weapons by illegal means is much more likely if such weapons are not eliminated, nor is deterrence particularly useful in regard to such groups. The other question is whether inspection of an abolition agreement can be adequate. The answer here, I think, is that inspection can of course be adequate if there's political will to make it so. Clearly we're not quite there yet with countries such as Iran or the DPRK, to put it mildly. However, elimination or an approach to it may change the political context in such a way that even that may become achievable. The six-party talks, for example, are predicated on a viable verification system. The other question that I think needs to be answered is whether conventional attacks can be deterred without nuclear weapons. This was always a big concern in Europe during the Cold War. The evolution of more destructive conventional weapons may contribute to solving that problem. The position of the European Union is that in the context of new security threats, the NPT, based on the 3 mutually reinforcing pillars of non-proliferation, disarmament, and the peaceful uses of nuclear energy, is more important than ever. The Union reaffirms its commitment to creating the conditions for a world without nuclear weapons in accordance with the goals of the NPT. We are convinced that intermediate steps on our paths towards this objective can also represent significant increases in security for all. And in the past 2 years, we have seen very positive developments. The EU has, of course, welcomed the signature of a significant new agreement between the United States and Russia on a strategic arms reduction treaty and looks forward to its swift ratification. The EU encourages both states concerned to work towards new agreements for further comprehensive reductions of their nuclear arsenals, including non-strategic weapons. The European Union is of the firm view that each country has the right to define its own energy strategy, and in this context we reaffirm the inalienable right of all NPT states parties to the peaceful uses of nuclear energy in conformity with those NPT obligations. The EU has noted that a growing number of states parties to the NPT have shown an interest in developing civil nuclear programs aimed at addressing their long-term energy requirements. And conscious of its obligations under Article 4 of the treaty, the EU will work towards promoting a responsible development of these peaceful uses. There are a few issues on which the result is unsatisfactory, in particular the absence of action plans of provisions concerning withdrawal, the weak language, for example, on compliance, and the absence of a reference to a moratorium on fissile material production. All the NPT states parties must ensure strict compliance with non-proliferation obligations and take resolute action, including the enforcement of the UN resolutions, in response to the challenges posed by these countries.